The first thing, in case there's anyone living under a rock, why don't you tell us what The Circle is and how it's different from other reality shows?
So The Circle is one of Netflix's first ever reality shows, and the reason it stands out so much compared to other reality shows is all the contestants never meet each other. It's all social media based. We all live in an apartment. We're on camera 24 hours a day, and we set up a social media profile on The Circle. But the twist of it is you don't know if you're talking to someone who's real because there are catfishes in the game. It's elimination based. $100,000 is on the line. And tonight at midnight, the final 4 episodes drop.
Awesome. So you mentioned it a little bit, but a big part of the show is the psychology about how people portray themselves. I mean, we all kind of do this on social media. So you actually made the decision to represent yourself honestly instead of taking the catfishing approach. So for you, how do you think it helped you in the game and in the show portraying yourself that way?
Well, for me, I never contemplated being a catfish just for the fact of I've always believed in myself and had confidence in myself. And being a catfish sounds like it would be fun, but not when it's a level of competition like this. So I went in there just saying, you know what, man, anything could happen. There could be so many things that could be out of my control. People aren't ever meeting me face to face. Who knows how they're going to perceive me? So I'd rather just go in there, be myself, stay true to who I am, and hope for the best. And so far, the reception from all the fans worldwide has just been absolutely insane.
Awesome. We'll come back to the reception in a little bit, but I have to ask you, I mean, it seems to me to be such a weird thing to be both isolated and have your life on full display. I mean, what was that like, kind of like living in this situation where you're isolated the whole time?
You know, to tell you the truth, you really start losing your mind a little bit. And I tell people all the time, I've had so many people reaching out to me saying, is the show scripted? Is this fake? Is it set up? I can't speak for other reality shows because I know some shows are. This show was 100% real. I am locked away. I have no music, no television, no nothing. And you want to stay in the game as long as you can. But the downside to that is the longer you stay in the game, the more crazy you start going. So at a certain point, when you're looking at the screen and you're looking at these players' profiles, the relationships you build, the connections you make, you really buy into it. It's not something that you could have as a facade. I mean, every person that stayed in the game with me up until this point, you really felt like this is all I have right now.
So speaking of those connections that you built up, are you still in touch with any of the contestants, you know, now that the taping's done?
Yes, all of the contestants, all of us, we're all still friends. We all keep in touch. We have a group chat on Instagram, and that's sort of been our only way of communicating for the last 4 or 5 months because we weren't allowed to follow each other on social media, talk on social media until Netflix announced this. And even since the show started to air, there's been limitations for how much communication we've been allowed to have publicly. So I'm excited for the final 4 episodes to come out so all of us can just talk about everything that happens. And the reception from fans who really get invested in all of our relationships on the show, it's kind of crazy because it's such a different reality show. You're not tuning in to see people fight and be at each other's throats. You're really tuning in for these personalities that you've responded to.
Speaking of those personalities and relationships, I think a lot of us typically have this kind of love-hate back and forth relationship with social media. It's great for so many things, getting yourself out there, communicating with current, old, and maybe future friends. How has doing this show affected how you both use and view social media on a daily basis?
You know, to tell you the truth, I've never been huge on social media. I've always had profiles, especially for me living away from back home in Rochester where all my family is. That's the main reason I try to keep a presence. But now I've shot up to almost 70,000 followers on Instagram within 2 weeks. But I've talked with so many people in the cast about this. You can't define yourself by how much attention you're getting on social media. You know, all the people who are reaching out to you for fake reasons. To me, the thing that's been beautiful about it is I've had so many people send me messages about their life, how the show has inspired them to be themselves, to take a risk and be vulnerable. And that's where I sit back and go, I have so much gratitude for this entire experience. It's been such a blessing.
So it sounds like, I mean, all of us growing up in Rochester, there's a certain Rochester mentality. I mean, what's something that you learned growing up here that you were able to apply both into the show and now that you're outside of it? I mean, what are some things that are growing up as a Rochesterian you learned that, you're kind of now using in your newfound celebrity life?
Oh man, being a Rochester kid is something I hold so proud to my heart. Especially living out here in LA, you tend to meet a lot of people from Rochester. People know it, and we all rally around each other. When I went on the show, I think being a kid from Rochester helped me get to the point that I'm at currently in the game, just because I'm not afraid to call people out. I'm not afraid to say exactly what's on my mind. And especially living out here in Los Angeles, so many people are not that way. So many people are fake. They tell you what you want to hear to your face, talk behind your back to you. When I went into the game, and especially we can't meet face to face, putting yourself out there, calling someone out or doing something is a really ballsy move to make. But I think being a kid from Rochester, New York definitely helped with giving the confidence to not even think twice about it.
So now, talk about a big culture shock. You just described the Los Angeles culture a bit. Why did you want to move there when you were 18? And when you got there, what was that experience first like?
So I was a month out of high school, living on my own, and in complete culture shock. I've had a dream my entire life I was going to pursue. Now I'm doing it. Where do I begin? So it's really been such a journey. And that's why when people ask me about the show, it's not something I celebrate just for myself. It's a celebration for my family as well, because they have had my back and supported me for so many years. My aunts, uncles, cousins, sisters, everybody. So for all of us, it's a testament to just say, you know what, man, we've all been on this journey for a long time. Now we can sort of sit back, reflect, and say the journey's been well worth the wait.
So what's next for you, Joey?
I have my film in post-production currently, which actually was shot in Rochester. It was a 7-year passion project. It's called Young Lion of the West, which, funny enough, is the name of the movie because years ago, before Rochester was named Rochester, it was called Young Lion of the West. So I spent almost 8 years trying to get the film made. And somehow, some way, almost 2 years ago, we got it done. We didn't cut anything from the script. We came home. We hired local talent as well as a lot of name talent from Los Angeles. And currently we're in post-production. Going to be looking for distribution sometime in the next, I want to say, 3 to 5 months.
Awesome. So I just have a couple more questions, and I have like these big 3 questions I want to end on. So you teased it a couple times. Without giving too much away, what can we look forward to in the show, The Circle, as it reaches its conclusion?
Well, what I can tell you is if you watched The Circle or you haven't watched The Circle yet, it's a wild ride. And these final 4 episodes are just like the first 8 episodes. There's a lot of unexpected twists. Everyone's very excited to see what happens at the finale because the winner's finally going to be crowned. I could just say, without giving anything away, every episode leaves you on the edge of your seat. The finale and the last 4 episodes in total, it's going to be no different. Everybody who tunes in is going to be really pleased to see the outcome.
Awesome. We do want to touch on this. You mentioned you're a film buff. This is such a great passion of yours. So what do you think about the Oscar nominations, and who do you think is going to do well at the Oscars this year?
When it comes to the Oscars, there's no doubt that I will always love them because, I mean, it's the Oscars. It's the highest honor there is in film. But to tell you the truth, I've sort of lost faith in the Oscars over the last 5 or 6 years. And I don't like saying that because so many film fans try to sound pretentious, like they know more than everyone else. But I think the Oscars needs to do better of acknowledging not only films that are well made, but films that audiences really embrace. What comes to mind is last year, A Star is Born was such a masterpiece of a film, and audiences also loved it. And they sort of shut it out on purpose because it had Lady Gaga, Bradley Cooper, uncut gems this year. Adam Sandler turned in the best performance of his career. The fact that he wasn't nominated or the Safdie brothers weren't nominated, to me, it's a criminal thing because it's Adam Sandler. He's the comedian who makes bad movies, so we can't let him into our club. I just think as history is unfolded, you see that all the films that are really remembered down the line are the films that weren't even nominated or didn't win anything at the Oscars.
All right, Joey, you are the man. I'm going to end with these 3 big picture questions. I call it the lightning round, but please feel free to take your time and answer. You touched about how Rochester was really important to your development, how it even helped you in your career in sort of a twisty, turny way. But growing up there, what do you think makes Rochester so special that allows it to cultivate and produce so many artists?
I think the special thing about Rochester is the blue collar mentality that you have growing up there, being very family oriented, and also the fact that if you were like me growing up, which I think a lot of people are, you're not in Los Angeles, you're not in one of those big cities. It seems like a different world, and it gives you hope. Lets your imagination run wild of getting to a place in your life where you can be somewhere where other people are like you. But there's nothing wrong with the Rochester mentality. I think everyone has a lot of heart, a lot of soul, and a really working class way of living that doesn't exist in a lot of other places.
So if you could accomplish one thing in your artistic career and be happy knowing you accomplished it, what would it be?
If I could do one thing in my artistic career and call it a day, it would be on a set of either Quentin Tarantino or Martin Scorsese in any single sense. I don't care if I'm an extra or I'm a speaking role. To me, those are my heroes. I got to meet Tarantino outside my new apartment complex probably 6-7 months ago, and that was a dream come true in and of itself. They say don't meet your heroes, and he was fantastic.
I got one more for you. Do you have any advice for aspiring artists?
Yes, my advice to any aspiring artist would be you have to be in one of the big cities, whether it's Los Angeles, New York City, I would say LA. Do not get held back. Do not put it off. Don't say you're going to move away eventually. You got to just do it. If you don't do it now, you're never going to do it. And you got to look at when you move away, you have a solid year or 2 before you really get acclimated and get used to the new way of living and the new hustle you have to go to. So for me, it was the hardest thing I've ever done by far. That's why I get how people would feel, but you can't wait, man. This is your life. You got to just do it. Get out, put yourself out there, and at least feel good with yourself knowing you've taken your life into your own hands and never sat back and waited for anybody to hand you anything.